Hi, everybody. Welcome back to First Light. I'm your host, Jill Smith, retired law enforcement officer. And at First Light, we offer hope and healing for first responders and their families. I'm here today with Dr. Mildred Betancourt, and we're going to be discussing biofeedback. What is that? What do you do with it? And how does it work? And what is it good for? So welcome. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Betancourt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a counseling psychologist. I have been working with the city of Irving, Texas for 14 years. And the last 3 years, I have been overseeing the public safety wellness unit, just solely focusing on the wellness of our firefighters, detention officers, police officers, and dispatchers.
Okay.
Initially, I started as a bilingual counselor. And my experience, most of my experience, if not all of my experience, has been focused on working with trauma, PTSD, victims of crime. Making the transition to work with first responders in that sense was not difficult because we continue to work with trauma. The only difference is the difference in population. And also the nuances of this population, which is very different from, I don't want to call it the normal because it's not normal.
Your average citizen.
Your average
Right.
citizen.
What are some differences that you see as a clinician in dealing with the public versus groups of first responders? What are some major differences that you see?
Well, major differences. For example, I am an average citizen myself. I went to school and trained to help people, hopefully provide them tools to improve their mental health. First responders train to learn how to walk into danger. They are trained to look for danger. Police officers, right? You're out there looking for any possible danger so that you can maintain the peace in society.
Firefighters, I mean, they're trained to
Run
same
into
thing, run into
fire.
the fires. Dispatchers, they're mentally dealing.
Exactly.
They're
With difficult phone
right,
calls that
right,
come
and
in.
they're working through phone calls with those people verbally.
Exactly.
And detention officers, they're
Trained to deal with the worst.
everything that we as police officers bring to that jail
Exactly.
gets dropped on them.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's a constant exposure to difficult situations, critical situations, and very often dangerous situations. And so the average individual doesn't go to school to deal with these types of
Right.
situations, right? And so that's one big difference. And the second big difference is, what does that do to our bodies? Because our body will react to the different situations in our lives. So for an average citizen, I may get exposed to a situation in its exceptional situations where my life may be in danger and my body reacts to that in the fight, flight, or freeze. But that's it. First responders experience that most of their career, almost every day. And so it's a constant activation of that fight and flight or freeze, back and forth. What that does to your body is it takes a huge toll in the individual's body, because although the fight, flight, and freeze is a normal reaction to stress, it's not meant to be ongoing. It's meant for a survival mechanism, because
Right.
with that activation also comes the triggering of hormones, stress hormones in our body. And it's a constant triggering of those hormones and neurochemicals. When do they stop? And when I'm stopping, I'm just being triggered again because there's another
Right.
trigger.
Right. It's it's one thing to have something happen every great now and then, and you're in survival mode to get through it. But when you're living in that, and that's
Constantly.
your lifestyle day in and day out,
Yes.
it's exhausting.
Wear and tear.
Emotionally, physically, mentally,
Yes.
spiritually, it's
Yes.
exhausting.
And so those are the biggest differences between a first responder, an individual who is a first responder, and an average citizen.
Okay, so when we talk about biofeedback, some people in general have an idea of what that is. Apparently, it encompasses a lot of different things. So, what is biofeedback? What does that mean?
So biofeedback, just by definition of the word, biological feedback
Okay.
is the feedback that your body provides us. That's biofeedback. So how do we read or hear what our body is telling us? The science behind biofeedback is that any technology that requires the use of sensors placed on your body to read or understand how your body's reacting to a certain stressor
Mhm.
is biofeedback. So you're very familiar as a police officer with the polygraph test.
Yes.
That is biofeedback. Whenever the officer who is being interviewed or the person being interviewed has a sensor on different parts of their body and they're being questioned with regard to a certain topic, trainer is looking and watching a monitor and seeing how the body is reacting. And so the body is providing biofeedback with regard to that specific stressor.
And you had mentioned earlier that another version of biofeedback is an EKG.
EKG, exactly. You have sensors on the patient. You're reading what the heart is saying, how the heart is reacting or performing, and then the doctor is seeing the heartbeat on the screen. That is biological feedback.
Okay.
So feedback is almost like a generic title to any technology that requires the reading of our body.
Okay. And so when we're talking about bio neurofeedback as a therapy for first responders or anyone really, what is that biofeedback doing?
Okay. Well, first of all, the way we use biofeedback in counseling, it's not therapy, it's a training.
Okay.
And so that's one differentiation that it's important to make because we're not doing psychotherapy when we're doing biofeedback training or neurofeedback training.
Okay.
So the way we use biofeedback to help the individual train their body to self-regulate their responses to stress. And so in that training, there's not your typical talk therapy going on. There might be one or two questions, or the questions are always leading towards developing sensory awareness. What's going on in your body? What are you noticing now? So that the individual can gain awareness as to what my body is feeling, why my body is feeling this way, and learn to self regulate those autonomic reactions.
Okay. You mentioned biofeedback and neurofeedback. What are the differences in those?
So biofeedback is from the neck down.
Okay.
Neurofeedback is from the neck up.
All right.
Just as simple as that. Anything neurofeedback is all the neurological training that we do to help the individual, again, self-regulate reactions to stress. In this case, sleep disturbances, focus, muscle tension,
Oh, yeah.
and
And all of those are great. We need help with all of those.
exactly.
Is there a combination of those that you do at the same time of the bio and the neurofeedback?
We have different protocols that will require a combination of neurofeedback and biofeedback. One of those being muscle tension, EMG. It could be an example of when we use a combination of both. The reason why we use biofeedback, I want to go back to that because I think it's important to tie in the why we provide certain services here at the wellness unit specifically for first responders. It's not that it's unique to first responders, but why did we choose biofeedback and incorporate that as one of our services? So biofeedback being a training to help the individual in a variety of medical issues. Incontinence, for example, is one of those issues that can be trained through biofeedback.
Really?
Yes. Migraine headaches. It's another one of those medical issues. But specifically within the first responder world is to help the individual deal with their stress response, hypertension, anxiety, or depression, or sleep disturbances, muscle tension. By incorporating that training here, along with other mental health services that we provide, makes us a more holistic wellness program so that we're able to help them not just deal and process trauma from a cognitive behavioral or counseling aspect, but we're also helping them develop the skills and the training to help regulate their stress responses and how the stress response is causing dysregulations in their bodies.
Which in turn is just going to compound if we don't deal with it. And, it's going to come out everywhere in our lives. It's going to affect our families' lives. It's going to affect our job. So would you consider this something that would be really an essential part of therapy in general? Like you've got your talk therapy, et cetera, medications if people need those, but bioneurofeedback as a supplementation to that. What are your feelings about that?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's primarily the reason why we incorporated it. I'm not saying that someone who's not trained in biofeedback and can only provide EMDR, for example, it's not effective. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that talk therapy, it's not effective to treat PTSD, anxiety, depression. But I'm saying if we want to be more holistic in targeting the person as a whole, we also want to be able to train them to not just identify negative thought patterns, but also why is my body feeling tense? Why is my respiration increasing? Why is my heart pounding so fast? So, with incorporating biofeedback and neurofeedback as a treatment, as a training option, will help with the physiology of trauma. That component of trauma, I think it's also very important because we are one person. I think the dichotomy was resolved a long time ago. We're not head and body. We are one person. You can't
separate
the
out the
body
different
from
parts of ourselves, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. When we take care of ourselves in general, we're trying to take care of our physical health. We work out a little bit. We're trying to eat right. We're doing things for ourselves to enhance our lives and make ourselves better. And this is one more set of tools to be able to help us live better and, ditch that stress and that anxiety that we have.
Exactly.
That's killing us slowly.
There are two things with regard to what you just mentioned. Several years ago, it was discovered that we have two brains actually. We have this brain, right? And we also have the gut brain.
That's right. There are chemicals that our gut produce that they're basically the same type of neurochemicals that we have in our brain, and our gut is producing those things that lend into our overall well-being.
Exactly. Exactly. So, second thing, a great book to read on that is The Body Keeps Score
By Bessel van der Kolk.
Yes.
You have heard us say that before. Great book. Yeah.
Yes. Two pieces of information that are important to understand as to why training like biofeedback and neurofeedback is so important, because we're targeting other parts of our bodies, not just the cognition part of it, not just the way we think about things, but how it impacts our body as well.
Right, and I think that's one more way that you can show people that when we are stressed out, we got acute stress, PTSD, or we're experiencing traumatic stress after a major incident that we've been on. We're not going crazy. We're not mental. These are normal reactions.
There's nothing wrong with
right.
you.
We're having a normal human reaction to something that's massively abnormal. And it's not just a brain issue. Those chemicals, those neurochemicals are also in our gut. These are some great tools that we have to learn to unwrap all of that stress and those traumatic feelings and emotions that we're dealing with that are, if we don't, those are the things that are going to back us day in and day out for the rest of our lives if we don't learn how to resolve them.
Exactly. It's very different. If I have never trained or ran a marathon, and then I find myself in a situation where I have to run, I am not going to keep up. I won't even run a mile probably. But if I have trained and I have a habitual training schedule where I'm 3, 4, 5 miles and even 25 miles, and in the course of my life I find myself in a situation where I have to run, I am going to be in a much better shape. My body is going to be in much better shape to withstand the stressor of running 10 miles.
Right, because you've trained your body,
Exactly.
you've mentally prepared yourself, you've learned about running, and we've learned how to deal with something that's going to benefit us in the long run.
And when you do that, you're not only training your body withstand the stress, you also know how to help your body recover from the stress. And going back to your initial question, an average citizen, that's not my life. That's not how I live my life. So therefore, when I am confronted with situations where there's danger, I react very differently from a first responder. Where the first responder training falls short is helping them to recover from the stressor. And that's where we come in. That's where all these modalities and clinicians that are now training and working with first responders come in, where we want to be able to teach the first responder, hey, part of your training is helping you run towards danger, put out the fire, catch the bad guy, whatever that may be. But does your training provide you with the tools, the knowledge, the ability to then recover from that stressor?
Right. And that is so important. We're all going to get training, regardless of what position we hold or what department we work for. You're going to get training in how to do our job. It's not one and done, right? We're in ongoing training for the rest of our careers. And for too long, the emotional side, the spiritual side, mental side of our positions has been not only neglected, but it's been pushed back, it's been held back, it's been looked down on that, hey, you know what, we're different from other people.
Right.
We're stronger. We don't need to know anything about this stuff. We're going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're going to suck it up, not bleed in the shark tank, and we're going to cry later when nobody's looking. And that's, in a nutshell, is what I experienced and seen in my career. I'm almost 28 years in the police, but I've seen it in other careers as well. We're talking about training for something. This needs to be an integral part of our training and learning how to take care of ourselves, because that's going to enable us to take care of each other and to have each other's backs. And hopefully one day eliminate that suicide risk and those feelings of you're halfway through your career, you're at the end of your career, and you are just burnt out and done. And you don't know how you got there. It's also going to help restore families. If you're restoring yourself and learning to be the best that you can be, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, then you are going to be that guy, or you are going to be that lady that gets through this career, and you're thriving and helping others to thrive, and you are helping your own family instead of watching your life deteriorate and everyone around you. You will be in a position
Exactly.
to make a better life for yourself and your family.
That's exactly the goal. So here at the Wellness Unit, we start from the new recruits. We start from the training academy, providing them with inoculation training, giving them just a snippet, right, of this is what you can expect. However, it's not all doom and gloom. These are also the things that you can start putting in place as of now to be able to buffer. Going back to the marathon analogy, this is how you train for a 25-mile marathon. This is not a sprint.
Right. Do you want to be better at your
Exactly.
job? I mean, do you want to be a better police officer? Do you want to be a better TAC officer? You want to be a better investigator? You want to be a better firefighter, better paramedic, EMT, dispatcher, jailer? Do you want to be better at your job? These are the type of tools, EMDR and the bio-neurofeedback, that help you to enhance your performance, quite frankly, when you're in the middle of your job, especially when you are dealing with something critical. These are the tools that teach you to deal with yourself in the middle of those situations. And when you have trained that into yourself, your brain has learned, okay, this is what's happening. I'm going to be fixing this on the inside in the background while all this chaos is ensuing. And you're going to be able to perform better.
It should be second nature.
Right.
The self-care after the stressor has to become second nature. And I was thinking, we award heroic performance, right? The officer of the year, the firefighter of the year. However, in order for that person to become the best at something, there was a price to pay.
Yes.
Are we also awarding them with that same distinction as to are they taking care of themselves? Are we helping them take care of themselves? Are we being facilitators to our first responders in that we don't make them feel guilty or less or weak?
Right.
For I just ran this 25-mile marathon. I am now going home and getting a massage or just eating the food that I need to eat. Are we being that facilitator as well to provide them with what they need to take care of themselves.
And I'm going to add to that. You're running and training hard and you're doing all these things, and you're in the middle of performing and doing those grueling tasks. You run the marathon, you do the CrossFit, you do the triathlons and all those things. And when you're at the end of that, what are you? You're wiped out.
Yes.
You're completely exhausted. And we across the board are like, oh, good job. You did
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Go home, recover,
Yes.
man. We expect people to be worn out, exhausted, mentally depleted, emotionally,
Yes.
after all of those things. And yet, when it comes to our careers,
You don't get that luxury.
all of those things happen in a given shift, right?
Yes.
Day in, day out.
Yes.
And there's nobody standing there going, oh, good job. Hey, you should be mentally worn out. You should be depressed after that.
Exactly.
You should be completely overwhelmed inside and you don't know what to do. And you're having all these aftershock feelings from any one of a number of traumatic
I love it.
events that we
Yes.
go through.
A marathon, and I expect you here to run the next one
Tomorrow, or the next call comes out an
Yes.
hour later, you better be on it. You better be 100%. And you don't oftentimes have somebody come to you. You might get a little, hey, you doing all right? All right, good. Get back in there and go. We need to take care of ourselves and each other and learn these things. Use the neurofeedback to your advantage. It's an excellent tool. And that's one of those things that we can say, hey, you know what? If you've done it, and I've done it several times with Dr. Betancourt in the past, where you can grab other people and say, hey, you know what? You got to do this. I'm telling you, it makes a difference.
Yes.
So we can reach out to our fellow first responders and say, hey, I get it. I understand where you're coming, what you're feeling. Hey, let's go talk to somebody. I'll help you out. Do the neurofeedback.
Right.
You're going to see change in yourself for the better. It's a great tool. So that's one way you can stand with your fellow first responders after they've been through these kind of events and say, hey, let's go talk about that. Let's go deal with that and learn to unwind all of that.
Exactly. Years ago, the idea was that we couldn't control or regulate our autonomic nervous system. Well, now we know it's not the case. Now we know that through biofeedback, neurofeedback, we can actually help our bodies.
Tell everybody, what are some of the benefits? What are you learning to control inside yourself?
Everything
with
starts
this?
with the proper breathing. There's a lot of psychoeducation involved, a lot of information that we provide our clients so that they can start understanding the science behind it. I don't think as a biofeedback or neurofeedback trainer, I am 100% effective if I don't provide that piece of information.
And I think that's critical. The more that we know, the better prepared we are to understand and to help take care of ourselves. So I agree.
And understand that this is a scientific method and that it's working with our bodies and the way our body is intended to work. A lot of that misconception is due to the lack of information that it's not shared with our clients. So they're left with, oh, this is magic. No, it's not magic.
Right.
It's
Or
science.
they feel like, well, this is something that's going to go against my religious beliefs. Well, no, this is just
It's
a
science.
non-invasive. You are working with your body as God designed it, and you're just learning to understand your body.
Understand your body and work with your body.
The instruments reading your body. You can see it on the screen, what your heart's doing, what your breathing's doing,
Exactly.
what your body temperature's doing, and you're just learning to understand yourself and calm yourself down, and etc.
So everything starts with the proper breathing technique, which is diaphragmatic breathing. And again, why is breathing important? Breathing is important because of the way our body is structured.
Right.
Our heart sits and rests right above our diaphragm, therefore helping and teaching the client to breathe with the diaphragm by expanding it and squeezing it. Just that in and outward motion will help the heart synchronize with the breathing. The heart, in turn, is attached to our limbic system through one of the branches of the vagus nerve that connects us with that autonomic nervous system in our brain, and voila. And so it triggers the opposite of the fight and flight. It puts the brakes on that fight and flight. Just the thought of something happening, or the smell of something that reminded me of the sound of something can trigger the fight and flight. By breathing in a certain way, meaning extended breathing, 4x4, tactical breathing,
Right.
better known as tactical breathing in the first responder world, box breathing, you name it.
Right. And the whole concept of that is if you think about somebody having high anxiety, I've got a lot of anxiety. And before I started the neurofeedback, I was just breathing. And I wasn't even aware that I was doing that. That was my normal, was to breathe, 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 fast, fast, fast. But it was just an anxiety symptom. But it's also triggering that fight or flight and causing those other anxiety symptoms as well. You know, you've got the rapid heartbeat going with that. You're sweating. You've got numbness and tinglings in your fingers, all kinds of
Exactly.
symptoms. And then through the neurofeedback, as Dr. Betancourt taught me to breathe differently, poof, all of that anxiety came incredibly down. And I'm not going to say it came to a stop, but the difference for me was night and day. And in fact, when she had come back in after a few sessions, maybe been 5 or 6, okay, how are you feeling? And I cried because I was like, I can't believe I feel physically, mentally just so much calmer and so much better. Who knew the answer was learning to breathe according to what your individual body needs,
Right.
not somebody else's breathing
Right.
pattern, my personal one, because I could see everything on the screen and see it and learn to understand it and learn to control my breathing and in practicing that, making it become the new norm, the new automatic, right?
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. And that's exactly what we see when we start that initial assessment. Individuals coming in with 23, 24 breath per minute, it's not normal.
That was me. And she was like, wow, you're off the charts. The breath chart. Yeah.
A healthy adult should be breathing anywhere between 10 and 12 breaths per minute. Well, I know of people who can breathe anywhere from 6 to 8 breaths per minute. So when you have someone coming in with 23 breaths per minute, they are on the verge of hyperventilating and they're not aware. I think that is one of the biggest insights that they gain. They're not even aware that they're breathing that fast. That's where the education comes in. That's where the education starts, helping them understand how their body is supposed to be functioning, helping them find their base and then work from there.
When somebody first comes in on a first session, how do you help them find their baseline? You have to start from somewhere. So you find their personal starting point. How do you zone in on that?
So we do 3 different types of biofeedback trainings here.
Okay.
We use a heart math modality.
Okay.
We use the mind media modality for biofeedback and neurofeedback.
And what's a brief difference between those? What is the heart math?
Heart math focuses on developing heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the focus on helping the individual learn to breathe properly so that it increases the resiliency. It increases the ability of that individual's heart to recover faster after a stressor. It focuses on the breathing and increasing heart rate variability.
And that is great. One major thing as first responders, we have got to take care of is our hearts. I mean, we are just heart attack
Yes.
laden in our careers, right?
So
Definitely
the more variability in the heart rate, the faster the heart will be able to recover after a stressor, which then will bring a number of other benefits, which we can't get into right now. But please do the research, heart rate variability, HRV, and all the benefits that brings about. Then we have the biofeedback through the mind media, which we do a stress profile test
Okay.
to give the individual their base. This is how your body is reacting in 5 different areas: heart rate, breathing, muscle tension, galvanic skin response, and volume pulse. So we'll test the individual in those 5 different areas. It's a very simple stress profile test that will give us a baseline under each of those categories. So if an individual's body is having difficulties recovering after a stressor in the area of breathing, their breathing rate is really high, then my recommendation is let's target that area first. Let's get that under control.
Okay.
Muscle tension, the EMG comes out very high, then let's try a muscle tension protocol to get that under control. So depending on which area the individual's body is having difficulties with, heart rate, for example, or the galvanic skin response, which is the parasympathetic, the autonomic nervous system, which is the opposite. I use the analogy of the brake versus the gas. The fight and flight is the gas, right?
Okay.
And the parasympathetic nervous system puts the brake to the fight and flight system.
Okay.
So after a stress reaction, which is the gas on the pedal, and after the stress is over, we put in the brakes, meaning our brain then works in harmony, right? It's the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, they work in harmony. They should, right? After a stressor, parasympathetic nervous system then comes and brings balance, homeostasis back to the body.
Okay.
When that's not happening, that means that we need to train our bodies to bring us back to homeostasis. And the galvanic skin response is a direct sign of how our parasympathetic nervous system is responding to bringing us back to homeostasis or not. So that's the mind media biofeedback. Mind media neurofeedback is then working with the different brain waves and how our brain is communicating or not to help us deal with muscle tension, migraine headaches, focus, sleep disturbance, depression, anxiety. And then based on the new Q, which is an assessment that we also have them go through to assess their baseline. And these are the things that we can work on, a summary of how your brain is communicating. And then we go from there.
Okay. And when somebody comes in to do this therapy, we had talked about basically hooking you up and monitoring you. What does that entail?
Initially, we get a history of the person, either mental health, physical, medical health, do the initial assessment to see what types of protocols might be recommended. Again, there's always a lot of psychoeducation involved. Once you start your protocol, depending on the type of biofeedback modality that we're forming, the person sits in a very comfortable chair. We try to make it as comfortable as possible. And we will place either the ear sensor, which is the only thing that we need for the heart math, or the other different sensors,
Which could be
for the EMG, for muscle tension.
And how are those placed?
It's non-invasive, and so it's placed on the body just like polygraph or an EKG. We place the sensors on the different parts of the body or the scalp.
Are these things that are glued on, patched on, just set on? What can I
Both.
expect
We
on
can
those?
use, it's not a glue, it's just the paste so that it makes the connection, a conductor. Or there are ones that have a slight adhesive to it and it's not abrasive. You can put it on the skin.
How long does it take to hook all that stuff up?
We deal with technology, and sometimes there's miscommunication between the skin and the sensor, but anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Right. Which is a pretty quick process. This isn't something that's going to take half a day.
No. A protocol may take anywhere from 15 minutes to maybe 25 minutes.
That's round trip. That's the whole session.
No, the whole session may be anywhere from 30 to 45 because the person comes in, we're wiping off the parts of the body, the skin with a little alcohol swab, and just the placement in itself factor in anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And then when we're ready to start, factor in anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes. So the whole session may be a full 45, 60 minutes.
Is there anything else you think that's important that we should know about this type of protocol?
I think the most important thing, if the individual is serious about, number one, their self-care, their health, but also serious about, I love my job, I love what I do, but I also want to retire in one piece.
Right.
I want to retire.
Live and enjoy the...
Yes. My next chapter, which is retirement. What comes after retirement? I mean, the sky's the limit. It's not the end, but the beginning of a new life, another life. I think it boils down to what is your priority as an individual. If you're really serious about taking care of yourself, biofeedback is just one of many modalities out there that can help that be the case. It can help that individual retire from a very stressful career, but retire successfully with the satisfaction and health that they need, both spiritually, emotionally, physically. Change the model that we have where you see these young, beautiful, handsome rookies come in, retiring, obese, suffering from alcoholism, PTSD, depression, and then in the worst case scenario, committing suicide because they are just so worn out because of the job. Let's turn that around. I think we have the knowledge now, the mechanism. Things are changing, eradicating the stigma so that that
Absolutely.
handsome, young, beautiful rookie retires still being handsome, beautiful, with a lot of experience, with a lot of successes, but also in good health.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you
Mhm.
so much, Dr.
You're
Bittencourt. I
welcome.
appreciate
And
it. Please do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and share this with someone. Bring this to your department and help reduce that stigma, help save lives. Remember, hope is free, and we hope you
yes,
spread the word.
thank you.